Hello and welcome to the show. You're on Soulstar Radio. I'm Jacquelene Close-Moore, your host, and I haven't quite had a piece of toast yet. No, sorry about the rhyming. So welcome back. I'm back in my South Yarra shop in Melbourne, and I've got a digging truck out the front getting into the plumbing of things. Apparently there's a burst water main, which is kind of a hilarious symbolic reminder of when emotions explode and manifest into the street, and we've got puddles of water out there, and it's going to be 42 degrees Celsius today, which is well over 100 in the F clock. Why have we needed an F clock? Just to, I think as women, we're taught to sort of be nice and not to ever say F off, so I think this is our year, ladies. Last year, 2018, was certainly very curious, and a happy new year to everybody watching, listening, and otherwise. Last year, just to recap, go back over the blast from the past, 2018 was actually an 11-year, otherwise known as a justice card. And so in the energy of the justice card, it's that weighing and balancing and having to weigh your heart against a feather, which has been kind of hilarious, not for people, in the sense of having to kind of clarify their emotions and clarify where they're at in their life, what's fair, what's just, what's balanced. And also we got themes of Themis and Pallas Athena in that. And, of course, Pallas Athena deals with love, but it's really Themis. Pallas Athena is actually about strategy and and so the law comes into that, and in the law, it's not necessarily, ask any lawyer, it's not necessarily about, the right outcome, it's about who's got the best argument, and weren't there a lot of those in 2018. 2018, also bringing to justice 1 and 1, 11 card, the justice card, 1 and 1 is 2, so that's where we bring in the High Priestess, which, look at me and my really bad engineering of how to move the card across the screen. This is just to make sure you're awake for the new year, by the way. But the High Priestess, so we're dealing there with, in a way, the knowledgeable energy of women and the intuition, but we're also dealing with the Maiden Mother Crone. But in this aspect, I think we're dealing with kind of like the Maiden. There's an aspect of the Crone there, but in 2019, we actually come into the Goddess energy big time because 2019 adds up to a 12. So how we do that? Well, 2 plus 0 plus 1, there's 3. And then 9, we got 12, so we get the good old Hanged Man. You'll notice he's not hanging by his neck, so there's no immediate danger. However, that eagle looks kind of reminds me of Prometheus, really, and that whole liver issue. But there's a sense there of having to deal in the Hangman with letting things go. And so there's been a lot of things around the internet about letting things go, more than usual and more than the usual. It's the end of the year, let things go. It's really big. It's let things go to do with emotional entanglements, old disappointing relationships where the same repetitive patterns happening, and learning to really love and nurture yourself. So I've been doing a lot of listening to audiobooks of Clarissa Pinkola Estes' work, Women Who Run with the Wolves and Warming the Stone Child and things like that. And thank you very much to Catherine, the homeopath, Heidi Rose Homeopathy, giving her a shout out. Hello. For putting me onto that stuff more so and reminding me to go back and listen to it, and particularly around the sort of legend of La Loba, the wolf woman, and how we sing back into life and regenerate ourselves as women, particularly if we've felt captured and in some ways losing our energy and feeling sacrificed to that captivity. Hangman, and feeling like, where do I go? I think I'll just hang here. I don't really feel like I can go there, go there, go there. What I find a lot in that Hangman card is sometimes we have to not so much give up, but it's giving into the situation and letting it go. And so Clarissa Pinkola Estes' work, I find, is really good at getting back to that more intuitive nature. And in 2019, it's all about getting back into your listening, to your intuitive self, listening to the nurturing of yourself. And in the Empress card, because 1 and 2 equals 3, we find the Empress card, we have Mother Earth. We have the mother figure. We have, the Earth Goddess, Mother Nature herself. We have the nurturing, the creativity of womanhood. And you'll see the river in the background in the Empress card, but also there is the river that runs through both cards. Right in the background of that Empress card, if you really look, you'll see the river once again. So the river runs through the High Priestess card and also through the Empress card in most symbolic ways of representing the tarot. So when we look at the Empress card there, we're looking at that fertility of life, but also in bringing creation to life. 3, the Empress, it links in the Kabbalah tree of life to Daleth, which means door. And so this is the door through which things are birthed. So we look at womanhood and the birthing process, bringing things into life, creative manifestation, magic and ritual, but also giving birth, children. And also we look at, in a 3-year, we always look at how were we nurtured? How do we nurture ourselves? How do we speak about our journey as a woman? And for men to do with the women around us and the feminine side of ourselves, because we all have an inner masculine and an inner feminine. So this year is really about, nurturing that inner feminine. When we go back to 2018, however, we're looking at justice to do with womanhood and to do with women and, the maiden. And so in a way, you're looking at the Me Too movement. You're looking at women saying time's up on this stuff. Hey, come on now. Now, 2019 is much more of the releasing of things. So after we're bringing stuff to light, how do we then deal with it? How do we acknowledge it? How do we, go through this whole process? And then how do we release, let go? And then what's the next step forward? How do we create that new life? And so letting go of the emotional debris, the things that have held us back, is a lot of what this is all about. And so, it's a very big process. So in the 3-year, we have to be more careful of our words, what we're saying. 3 people with a 3 life path number, often are teachers, they're coaches, they're mentors, quite often I find. Although you can in a 4 find a mentor and a counselor as well, but it's more on the yang side of it. 3 has more of that yin quality of that, because in 3 we have the Empress, in 4 we have the Emperor. And so both give wise guidance and counsel, but from different angles and different levels. So in a 3-year, it's better to listen to your creative urges and your instincts, your real instincts, not simply what you think you want, but your instincts of intuitively what's drawing you to your real calling, and listening to that rather than listening to your fears and your insecurities. That doesn't mean throw logic out the window, of course. It's just about listening more to that intuitive guidance that guides us to the right places when we're really listening to it. And so this is why, people will, be releasing toxic relationships and releasing the past and giving birth to the new future for themselves, for others. And 3 is also about listening not only to our intuition, but also listening to other people. So we can find that the conversation opens up more widely about how we nurture each other, how we treat each other, what doors are we opening for others, and who are we needing to perhaps keep out, and choosing that very carefully with discernment rather than going with fear. So there's a lot of good stuff that you can get through working with that energy positively, and I really recommend the work of Clarissa Pinkola Estes, particularly to do with this year, because she's really honouring that sacred goddess side and, the wild side of women too that does need to be expressed, because when we try to encapsulate ourselves into too much rigidity, into too much conformity, into crushing our dreams, then, we lose that wild side, and the part of us that's unexpressed, can build up and it can come out in some very destructive manners and means. And so it's really important to find a safe place to maybe look at the things that you've held back from and not explored, and say to yourself, all right, well, how can I constructively use this energy to explore it and to go back to things? So you may find it helpful this year to look at what were the dreams that you gave away and when did you give them away, and how can you go back to those? How can you find the courage to look at, what is nurturing to you? What is, bringing you back to life, rather than what holds you back in the past. And that letting go of the past is so very important. As much as it might call you, there has to be a point in the road where you mark the cross. You know, you look at these roadside commemorations of people, and I was only just listening to that on the Clarissa Pinkola Estes work, and she had a word for it. But we do that in Australia as well. We mark where there's been a road accident, and where there's been death. And what Clarissa Pinkola Estes' work and what I got from it was about marking that point in the road in your life and saying, yep, that was that. That was huge. Or that was this situation. To honour that for what it is, not just as an external thing, but an internal thing, how it made you feel, where you're at with that, and then to release that, let it go, keep moving down the road. There's no reason to have to go back there. And I think it's interesting when I'm working with some clients and they'll be obsessed about a relationship that just hasn't worked out. And I'm so very good at helping them release that. And I do that through ritual. And I say good at doing that because I seem to get them coming to me a lot, and I seem to get them telling me it works. So that's why I'm saying it that way. But they all come back later and they'll say, do you know, I only had the reading from you. I didn't even have the ritual that you said you could do, but that you wanted me to go away after the reading and let the energy sit with me. And they come back and they say, I haven't thought of them since. I've let it go. And sometimes it can be through sitting with someone like myself. And there are many talented people out there. If they are someone who understands and has been through maybe being stalked, maybe being, in toxic relationships at points, and maybe having to transmute that energy in their own life, they can then help you because they've seen it, they've been through it. And we don't all have to have seen and been through the same things to help someone at all. But some people seem to, be able to really hold that space for you. So this is a year I encourage you, if there's something you're stuck on from the past and it just keeps reverberating through your mind, is there a therapist, a Jungian therapist perhaps? Is there, a really good psychic? Is there an astrologer? Is there a healer? Is there painting you can do? Is there pottery and holding the wheel with clay and molding something in your hands and centering it? Is that something? Is that level of earthing, of actually touching wet earth and molding it into something new? Is that going to be what helps you to create the new structure for yourself, the new vase or cup that you drink from? And, is this a way of you taking on the creative waters and healing the emotions? Does it need to be a ritual? For some people, I find it's a ritual, and it's amazing how when I've done ritual for people to clear obsession from toxic relationships, how I'll say to them, now you need to put your phone on flight mode because this person will start phoning you. And they might not have heard from them in months or weeks or years, and all of a sudden, there they are. They're ringing, or they're stalking their Facebook profile, maybe reading a story, and they're suddenly visible, aren't they, as soon as you do that ritual? And it's because on some level you've created a vacuum of space and you've pulled back and you've gone back into your center. And sometimes the other person feels that on some level. They might not know that they feel that, but it can be felt. And it's so often responded to. So there's that phone call or that text. But when you've really cut that cord and you've really cut that dependency and codependency, or that toxicity, and you're really free from it, and you step back far enough, and you might think, I'll do that clearing because they'll phone me. That's what I want. But when you're really in that clear space and you're sitting with it and owning your own energy, you don't want to speak to them. You might but there's a detachment there, and it's much easier to see it for what it really is. And if it's truly something that's going to work out, perhaps there's a more honest conversation they can have with you and you can have with them. And honesty and trust is the most important components of any relationship, because if you don't have those, you don't have a relationship. It's really about being able to be equally loved, to be equally nurtured. And this year is all about that sense of nurturing. So it's really important to honour your wounds, to be able to face them. So I really encourage you to work on that and to really start to look at how you can heal, because that's your best way when you sort of look at answers and you look at psychics giving you answers. Sometimes the answer is right there in the questions, in how many of the same questions or the same question put different ways. Sometimes people will be in readings with me and they'll be asking the same question but in different ways. And I'll say, well, I've already answered that. Do you remember what I just said to you? Oh, yes, but do you think they will? Oh, yes, but do you think this will happen? Oh, yes, but how are they feeling about me? How are you feeling about yourself? How are you feeling about how you're honouring your own journey, your own needs? Does it have to be about what someone else is feeling? How about where you're standing, where your energy is? Bring it back to that. If you're always looking out and what am I getting out of it? Well, yeah, okay, look at what you're giving. But sometimes it's just a case of being able to say, well, that simply didn't work. It's never going to work. Either they or I or both of us will never change. And I accept that. And in accepting that, you set both of you free. And doing that, even if you're doing a ritual to do that, and they ring you or they stalk your profile or they read a story and you can see that they can read the story and that's how you know, even though you knew. There's no need to have to communicate. There's no need to continue the conversation. When the conversation is over, the conversation really is over. And so it's really important for you to look at what conversations you're having this year. What are you listening to? What are you saying? What are the throwaway words? When you speak to yourself, what are you saying? Are you saying, I can't do that, I can't have that, they don't love me, they won't love me? Or are you saying, do you know, it's okay. I honour myself, I honour my journey, I honour who I am. I honour this person in front of me. And in honouring them, it doesn't mean I agree. In honouring them, it could be that I decide that we can agree to disagree. It could be that, you know, there's a synergy of energy. It could be that there isn't. But to honour it in honesty of where they're really at and where we are at together or not. But to honour that journey is to actually honour the entire process. And here, it's really important to be able to do that and to really hold that space. So I'd really kind of get you to meditate on that goddess energy, on connecting to Mother Earth. A really great thing you can do is draw down the sun and to stand there to see the sun and to draw that down through you, and then to take that energy right down into your feet and see yourself drawing and pulling and seeing roots of trees growing down through the soles of your feet into the earth, connecting right down through and anchoring into our mother, because she is all of our mothers. And connecting with that energy and drawing it back up through you, you can really feel that connection not only to Father Sky and to that sort of sense of source through the universe, but also very much to the groundedness of Earth. And in doing that, if you're firmly rooted to the earth and firmly grounded and centered in where you are and holding your heart space, then it's a lot harder for anything to knock you. In Tai Chi, they talk about the root, and they talk about being able to hold space, in that sort of energy. And in being able to hold the space of your energy. You hold your feet a certain way apart, and you're holding them forwards and backwards so that you can stay grounded. And so the only way you get knocked off your feet is if your feet are too close or they're not, angled so that you have the wideness of that grounding. It's about that wideness of the grounding that actually holds a space for you and stops you from being easily tipped over. And so when we look at 2019, be flexible, but don't be tipped over, by a misplacing of your feet in your life as a symbol for where you're standing within yourself. By holding your center, you're not so easily tipped. And yes, things can still hit us out of the blue. There can be transition in life. There can be changes in jobs. There can be deaths in the family. There can be the winter of the soul that we go through at certain points in our life as well. And we honor that journey, but it's just, we can be helped in our resilience to go through those things if we're self-nurturing, if we're self-caring. So what is self-care? So this can be, in my case, it could be a hula hoop at the beach, in the water, the shallow water, because it gets weird if you're trying to do that in the deep water. I could be playing a Tibetan bowl while doing that. I can actually do that. I probably should show you one of these days. Because I don't think many people can do that, although I challenge you. And that's about getting creative. We're dealing with your energy there too. But for other people, it might be gardening. It might be making a cake. It could be hanging with the family. Self-care, however, usually is more self. It's not everyone else. And mothers, if we think about it, we are just for everybody else. And where are their needs being met? So if you have someone around you who's a young mother particularly, people can be feeling there's something wrong with them as a mother. Am I doing enough? I think if you're not worrying about that, then if you are worrying about that, you probably need to accept where you're at with things. And if you need help, get help. But just remember, bringing in or being too critical doesn't help. But self-care is very important. That can be sitting by the beach. It can be, watching really trashy TV, having a bath and having a wine, not too much wine. Don't get drunk in the bathroom. We don't want to have you lose consciousness. It can just be relaxing. It can be going out with friends. But usually it's going to be more of a retreating into the self. So you may find that while this year has lots of events and lots of openings and lots of energy and lots of things to do and lots of demands and lots of people talking and listening and all sorts of interesting conversations, that there also needs to be time out. And time in nature really helps this year because people with a 3 life path number often will, for example, trust animals far more than people. And they'll find being out in that very nurturing. And so it can be a really great time to visit the forest or the lake and to just, sit with that. So whether that's having a picnic, and that for a day to take time out, it doesn't have to cost you money. You can also deal with an aspect of the media and also communication around that. So I think for writers it'll be an amazing year, a productive year, and particularly those who write their emotions out. It can be very cathartic, any old tick of the clock, but particularly this year can be very transformative for that. 3 also represents the Holy Trinity, and I could be talking about Maiden Mother Crone. I think I will. But it's about honouring the goddess this year, not just the god. And I think honouring different people's beliefs is always handy at any time, but particularly around the goddess energy, so the goddess is in your life, those women who've helped you. And it's very important, therefore, for women to support women to listen to other women. So those are the sorts of energies I'd like to have you think about and make use of, listening to yourself, listening to your instincts, not giving way to your fears, letting go of the things that don't serve you, maybe writing or releasing them, taking lots of time for self-care, working on expanding career energy appropriate for you, particularly if you're in any other number but a 4 this year. You should be pretty good with that. If you're in a 9 year, it's about completing or putting the icing on the top of the cake, the cherry on top, and finishing in that way. If you're in a 4-year, just stay flexible with things and don't let your worry get the better of you, because worry can create more stress. More stress, we make more mistakes. It sort of just catapults from there. So if you are getting stressed this year, the best thing to do is give yourself space. And so I'm sorry that I didn't take any calls today. It's been more about chatting out about the end this year, and I hope that's helped give you some ideas. And in the meantime, I'm going to catch you next week. Love you lots, all of you. Feel free to connect with me through the website or through social media, Facebook, Soulstar Radio, you'll find me, or soulstar.media, you'll find me as well. Catch you next week. Lots of love. Bye-bye.